The next talker is Dr. Iyad Feteih. He is consultant diagnostic and interventional radiologist and head of department at King Fahd Hospital in Jeddah. He's also a member of the exam committee at the Saudi Board of Radiology. He will talk to us about IVC filters.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First, I'd like to thank the organizers for having me here. So I'm going to start talking about the IVC filters. It's mainly just an overview of what's out in the market now. I'm going to start with excuse me, with some historical perspectives of IV interruption for the prevention of pulmonary embolism. So the idea came up in 1865 with Armand Trousseau, first proposed IVC interruption for the purpose of preventing pulmonary embolism. Multiple surgical procedures were tried out until the 1960s. Between the 1940s and 1960s, several surgeons also pursued doing further techniques, among which was Michael DeBakey. Unfortunately, these techniques had high mortality rates and significant complications. The next level was compartmentalization of the IVC using various sutures or clips, again having significant issues again with IVC thrombosis and mortality rates. The next generation of IVC interruption was with the endoluminal methods, which started out with the Moby-Newton umbrella in 1967. It was basically constructed in the shape of an inverted umbrella with 6 stainless steel struts. These were covered with a thin heparinized fenestrated membrane. They were inserted by a jugular route, obviously, again, a very extensive procedure. It had, again, significant issues with up to 60% of cases with IVC thrombosis. Then in 1973, it's when it all changed, when the Greenfield filter was first invented, and this became the device which was the standard by which everything else was compared. Obviously, initially, it was pretty big. It was almost 30 French sheaths to insert. I mean, now we do the aorta with much smaller sizes, but it was the beginning of the revolution of IVC filters. And the first one was inserted in 1984. So there are a whole bunch of criteria or specifications that you'd like to have in the quote-unquote ideal IVC filter. Many of the current IVC filters cover a lot of these issues. Most of the IVC filters on the market are very good and do the job adequately. But with experience, you know which filter has what relative issues compared to others. So I'm gonna just list out. This is a list of the filters. This is a 2013. But hasn't changed significantly. So these are CE marked filters. The filters here in yellow are available in the US market, not as much in the international market. So in no particular order, I'm just listing the companies and the filters provided by each company and give a few points on each. So starting with the Bard filters, they have a list of filters. They came out with the first permanent nitinol filter, which is the Simon nitinol, and then a series of optional filters. So the filters I'm mentioning now are all available on the market in different areas of the world. So this is the Recovery G2, which came out on the market in 2005. It was initially approved as a permanent filter, then 3 years later in 2008, FDA approved for retrieval. It's basically an updated version of the recovery filter, which was taken off the market in 2005. It has a very good retrieval rate, and the issues with this filter, improved with the G2 filter compared to the previous were fracture of limbs, which was demonstrated on numerous occasions. They have rates of tilting and migration. I say high rates, it's very relative because all filters tilt. I mean, I'm assuming almost everyone here has dealt with IVC filters. So I think a large part of that goes into the technique when inserting the IVC filters initially. The next one that came out was the G2 Express, and the G2, basically a similar model to the G2, by which they added a retrieval hook. So now you could either use the cone retrieval set or a typical gooseneck snare. These filters were on the market by 2008 and 2009. This filter is available in the US market. It's basically the same filter as the G2 Express or G2X, and just electropolished, so much smoother surface, less thrombogenic. Then they came out with the Meridian filter in 2011. This I have never used before, but it has titanium anchors, again, just to decrease the chances of migration. And their latest innovation is the Denali filter, which came out to the market last year. It's still to be available. I think it's available in a couple of the countries in the GCC. In Saudi Arabia, it still has to be. It's coming out in the next few months. It has differences compared. It looks maybe the same as the G2 filters. However, it is a one-piece nitinol filter, and it has new anchors that prevent penetration and migration compared to the previous designs. There is a clinical study which included 175 patients in multiple centers. They were successful in 86 out of 88 retrievals. I think the two that they had problems with was related to the significant curvature of the anatomy of the IVC, which was the main issue for failure of retrieval. These are the complication rates that they found. So basically the filter penetration, no fractures, no migrations were demonstrated. The next one I'd like to talk about is from a Crooks Biomedical, which was acquired by Volcano. This is a different design than you're used to, the conical type of filters. This came out in the was FDA approved in 2013, and it varies in size. It covers between 17 and 28, depending on how much it opens up when deployed. The good thing about this filter is you can retrieve it and deliver it either jugular or femoral. All other filters are usually one-sided retrieval, either jugular or femoral, most of which are, especially the conical ones, are jugular retrieval. It was developed by Crooks Biomedical, which is a company that was started by Thomas Fogarty, who invented the famous Fogarty embolectomy catheter. So again, a double helical design. So I think it's the only helical design filter out on the market, and the design is less traumatic compared to other filters, as they mention. Also, a study was the Retrieve 2, 3, and 4 evaluated the efficacy and safety of these filters, which demonstrated very good results. Cook Medical, they've been in the market for filters for many years. Their Gunther Tulip is still on the market. When it came out first in the year 2000, it was the world's first optional filter. And it has a good success rate, and it's used for IVCs with a diameter of up to 30 millimeters. So again, it was approved for use as a permanent filter initially, because the FDA requires you have, I'm not sure, 3 to 5 years, I think, of studies until they actually approve it. So there's always a delay between filters being approved as permanent and then as retrievable, but it was available in the European market since 1992. The Select filter, also a very common filter that's used, which has a long retrieval window, longer than suggested for the Gunther Tulip. They suggest 51 weeks, but I think, most interventionists see them as an open-ended retrieval window. Problems with this filter, as per the clinical trials out there and clinical experience, they usually always complain, not always, but the complaints were mainly that of penetration, IVC wall penetration by the limbs or arms, either on retrieval or insertion. So now the latest innovation by Cook, and this filter still to be available on the market, during this year should be available, is the Select Platinum. So what they did here was change a few things. They added platinum tip hooks on the lower ends of the legs, and at 90 degrees. So one, they would improve visibility when placement of the filter, and the second one, hopefully decrease the IVC wall penetration. And the second change was they have a more flexible tip just under the filter in placement, so it takes better curves in in the more tortuous IVCs. All of the Cook filters are available with what they call an Avaline delivery system, which improves the technique, makes it easier and more precise. Cordis has the Optis filter, which is their only optional filter. It's been available on the market since 2000. It has a double basket design, and it is maybe inserted through the jugular femoral or brachial / antecubital access. The only issue with this filter, I find this is a good filter, the only issue with this filter is the very short retrieval window. 23 days, so I think if you have a service that can't really control the return of your patients, or you don't have patients that you know will come back, it's almost not going to come out if patient can't come back within 3 weeks. So I think that's my only issue. Otherwise, I think it's a very easy to use filter, and the problems with it are very limited. Recently, they had a Class 1 recall, which was initiated in March of 2013 for units distributed in the US. But it was related to a labeling correction, not to faulty manufacturing of the filter itself, just to make sure that it's implanted appropriately. ALN, the ALN filter is also a good filter. I managed to do the first clinical experience of the filter in Canada when it was approved in 2007. So it's been around the market in Europe since 1997. It was FDA approved in 2008 and approved in Canada in 2007. It's stainless steel again, and has three, it can be inserted from jugular, femoral, or brachial. It is a conical filter. It usually comes in a filter holder, and the retrieval extraction kit, as you can see, is cone type. The newest addition to or modification is that they recently added a hook, a cranial hook to the filter, so now it can be retrieved using the extraction kit or a typical snare. Raphael Medical Technologies, they have the SafeFlow filter. Again, a very different design, which you call it cylindrical. It also covers from 15 to 27 millimeters. I don't think this filter will be available in this area of the world just because originates from Israel, so I don't know. But I guess we could always, go visit someone and try it there. It has been CE approved since 2004 and FDA approved in 2009 only as a permanent filter until now, because they have a study out there they need to cover 5 years before they're going to allow it to be a retrievable filter. So expect to see maybe during this year at some time it may get FDA approval as a retrievable filter. And it comes in 3 sizes. I find this to be an issue because most of us, I don't usually measure the IVC unless maybe on the CT. But so you actually have to make sure that you choose the correct size before you start the procedure. Compared to all other filters, they come in one size that covers a specific range. Argon Medical acquired Rex Medical, so these 2 filters were designed by Rex Medical initially. So you have the option, which is available since 2009, and the newer filter is the option Elite. They look similar, but there's a little bit of difference in the design and the arrangement of the limbs. This filter was FDA approved in January of 2014. It is the first retrievable IVC filter approved for over-the-wire delivery. So I've never used this, but I'm expecting that this one can assist in more proper placement and less tilting, as it will follow the anatomy of the IVC, whether it be curved or straight. And it also has a small introducer sheath. Moving on to permanent IVC filters. Simon-nitinol, been in the market since 1990, and it is the first nitinol filter on the market. It's a very good filter. It's a cheap filter. I've used it before. Don't have it in Saudi. I haven't used it since I've been in Saudi from coming back from Canada, but that was a standard filter. It's cheap. It's very good. I haven't seen any problems with it. But the problem is with permanent filters, we usually never see them again, so we don't really know that much. Trapeze by Cordis, also again been around for almost 14 years. It's the same design as the Optis, except you have now cranial and caudal hooks to prevent the migration of the filter. The bird's nest filter has been around since 1982, made by Cook, and the filter is indicated for IVC diameters up to 40 millimeters, so it's the largest. So it's for mega cava filters. For mega cavas, and the only problem was it's usually technically more complex to insert, and it has some issues with if it's placed too close to the renal veins, and it's a large delivery system compared to the current filters out on the market. Venatech since 1982 as a permanent filter, and the newer one compared to that is the Venatech LP, which has a lower profile and is made of wire rather than if you can see here, it's more like metallic plates, here more of wire, and it's made of Finox, which is a non-ferromagnetic alloy. They have an anticubital introducer sheath, which is very good for insertion from that site, and it at up to 55 degrees is kink-free, so you don't worry about even if there's a bit of a tortuosity, that it will maintain its lumen for safe delivery of the filter. The Greenfield filters are still available, I think, on the U.S. market. Since 1989, the titanium Greenfield filter has been around, as well as the stainless steel over-the-wire Greenfield filter since 1995. Lastly, there's a current study or hypothesis that they're working on in China about drug-eluting IVC filters. So the concept behind this is that the majority of failures of IVC filter retrieval is due to increased there's always endothelialization, but sometimes a neointimal hyperplasia is more significant in patients than others, making it more difficult to retrieve the filters. So they think about the matrix metalloproteinases play a key role in the hyperplasia, So how to counteract that effect, and so making it easier to retrieve filters. So I think it's still a work in progress. It sounds like a good idea, but is it going to work? Is it going to increase the price of IVC filter, to which some of are already very or relatively expensive? But I think we'll have to see what happens with that. So in summary, there are numerous IVC filters out in the market. I think they all do a good job in preventing pulmonary embolism. You know, each one has its pros and cons. Choice of filter usually depends on, I'm assuming, depending on where you are in the world, the price, availability, company service, distributors. I think multiple factors, but all in all, I think they all do a good job. Continued research and development is still obviously in the works for finding the ideal IVC filter, making it easier for interventionists and safer for patients. Thank you.